Now to the Minnesota scandal. This is, again, New York Times. Headline, How Fraud Swamped Minnesota's Social Services System on Tim Walz's Watch. Again, New York Times. Says that the feds are charging dozens of people with felonies, accusing them of stealing billions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars from a government program meant to keep children fed during the COVID pandemic. Over the last 5 years, officials say that fraud took root in pockets of Minnesota's Somali community. Scores of individuals made fortunes by setting up companies that billed state agencies for services that were never provided. 59 people have been convicted in those schemes so far. More than $1 billion in taxpayer money has been stolen, and they're still investigating several other plots. New York Times said the Minnesota fraud scandal stood out even in the context of rampant theft of COVID money during the pandemic, when Americans stole tens of billions through unemployment benefits, business loans, and other forms of aid. Tim Walz is running for a third term, and people are beginning to ask questions about his stewardship. One federal prosecutor who's overseen fraud cases say, we're losing our way of life in Minnesota in a very real way because of these thefts. There was a nonprofit called Feeding Our Future, which claimed to be feeding hungry children. In reality, said the prosecutors, most of the meals were non-existent. The business owners spent the money on luxury cars, houses, even real estate projects abroad. A lawyer for one of these defendants, the defendant, by the way, is pleading guilty. The lawyer says that there are other defendants, and what happened is that people from Somalia are used to ripping off the government, and some of them don't think twice about it. That there were red flags, nobody cared. And this is the lawyer again. Quote, it was like someone was stealing money from a cookie jar and they kept refilling it. One prosecutor said one of the reasons that nobody was investigating this is because once you do, members of the community will start yelling racism. And the community has become so powerful, it's very difficult to win office in Minnesota without getting support from the Somali community. And if you are perceived as racist, you're not going to get that support. Again, the governor, by the way, said that his administration erred on the side of generosity during the pandemic. He said, quote, the programs are set up to improve people's lives, and in many cases, these criminals find the loopholes, close quote. He's now claiming he's clamping down on this fraud. One reporter for the City Journal is alleging that money from the Minnesota fraud ended up funding Al-Shabaab, which is a terror organization in Somalia. The New York Times said the claim has emerged, but there's no substantial evidence to corroborate it. A professor at a college in Minnesota, who's a leading expert in Somali studies, said that our society has been extremely good to Somalis. He, by the way, is also Somali American. But he said again that Somali refugees come to this country from a culture in which stealing from a government was widespread. And he said in Minnesota, it was easy because, quote, the state is so tolerant, so open, and so geared toward keeping an eye on the weak, close quote, it didn't have sufficient guardrails. Here's what President Trump said about this massive, massive scandal. 99.
And they contribute nothing. The welfare is like 88%. They contribute nothing. I don't want them in our country, I'll be honest with you. Okay? Somebody would say, oh, that's not politically correct. I don't care. I don't want them in our country. Their country is no good for a reason. Their country stinks, and we don't want them in our country. I could say that about other countries too. I can say it about other countries too. We don't want them to hell. We have to rebuild our country. You know, our country's at a tipping point. We could go bad. We're at a tipping point. I don't know if people mind me saying that, but I'm saying it. We could go one way or the other, and we're going to go the wrong way if we keep taking in garbage into our country. Ilhan Omar is garbage. She's garbage. Her friends are garbage. These aren't people that work. These aren't people that say, let's go, come on, let's make this place great. These are people that do nothing but complain. They complain. And from where they came from, they got nothing. You know, they came from paradise, and they said, this isn't paradise. But when they come from hell, and they complain and do nothing but, we don't want them in our country. Let them go back to where they came from and fix it.
And not too surprisingly, a member of the Minneapolis Council has referred to President Trump as a racist xenophobe, number 102.
We're going to stay informed, we're going to stay safe, and we're going to support each other. We will continue to working our partners on the ground so residents know their rights. They know where to turn for help, and we know that Minneapolis will not abandon. One of the things I do want to say, and obviously everyone knows that our president is racist, xenophobic, Islamophobic, and we are going to fight that. America has a history of fighting and stopping those kind of individuals who continue to divide people and divide communities. Many Somalis that live in this community are working at your groceries, working at your hospitals, delivering your babies, they're doctors. They are very successful individuals.
We come back, we're going to talk about some disparaging comments that have been made by people on the left. All of a sudden, the very same people who are accusing President Trump of racism for making the comments he made about the Somali community don't seem to care too much about the statements made by others who have a D at the end of their name.